And our first guest, he is the Commissioner of Agriculture in the state, Kent Leonhardt, U.S. Marine Corps veteran. Good morning, sir. Great to have you with us. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me on, Rob. And gentlemen, you guys kind of set the stage there. We're going to have a little bit of fun, it looks like, if you guys can just figure out which chair you're supposed to sit in.
Yes.
Hey, Kent, every time the music stops,
They'll rotate.
somebody gets a new chair.
As long as none of us has to sit in Rob's chair and work that board, we're okay.
Do you pull one chair out every time the music stops?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then you eventually get booted out of the studio. That'll happen, too. Kent, we've had a lot of rain. I think our weatherman Bob Cookin said in the Panhandle, at least, we've had twice the amount of rain in the month of May that we usually get. Where does this leave, and I assume with all the flooding reports that the state has had a lot of rain, too, where does this leave the state from an agricultural standpoint in regards to a drought from last year?
Well, this just goes on to what farmers face all the time. They face uncertainty in weather, and they face uncertainty in markets, and we'll talk about that with the tariffs and all later on. But this is what our farmers face all the time, and at the Department of Ag, we at least try to give them certainty in regulations because of all the uncertainty, as I just mentioned. The drought, the rain has come. It's welcome because we were in a drought situation, but it's just come too much too fast. It has caused many issues. When Helene came up, it brought not only were like our strawberry growers facing problems from the earlier drought and the frost that came in. We could talk about that in the orchards, but it brought up a fungus, and we never had that fungus before. So the storms have brought things in that the average person doesn't realize has happened, particularly over on the eastern Panhandle. So that's hurt us a lot there. I would much rather get an inch of rain a week with a slow, steady drizzle for that day so it's absorbed in the soil. When it comes this quick, it hits, it runs off, and then we have those problems with erosion. And the erosion, and we lose nutrients. That goes down to in our streams, rivers, and bays. That hurts. And we also lose that nutrient. The farmer maybe has applied some fertilizer, and he's lost all that. Not to mention the topsoil that goes down. When you see a heavy rain and you see the streams a little that are brown over on your side, that's a little bit of West Virginia leaving West Virginia. On the other side of the state, on the Ohio River side, you see those brown streams. Some of that dirt may eventually end up in the Gulf of America now. So it's kind of tragic, but our farmers have lived with this for decades, and we're going to get through it.
Kent, what are the main agricultural products in the state? I know we grow apples, obviously, and plenty of those. What else is West Virginia known for agriculturally?
Well, we're known. Poultry is our biggest industry, both in turkeys and broilers, and we have one processing plant in Moorfield, West Virginia. That is our largest counted output. We've also been doing very well until recent times with the drought in the livestock arena. We grow an awful lot of hay. We grow an awful lot of grass, and we do have some row crops like corn and soybeans, but that does not enter the international market as much as you would think. A lot of that is used locally or sold. Some of it enters the international market. And then some of our calves, obviously, for years and years, we were mainly a cow-calf operation, whereas the farmer would raise calves. They'd be born in the winter, and they would sell them in the fall. And those animals then would go to the Midwest where they got fattened up, and they may end up in foreign trade, but the farmer didn't own them at that point in time. But we're seeing more and more people having fewer mama cows and retaining animals a little bit longer because we've seen an uptick in local meat processing so that people are buying West Virginia grown beef. And people are really enjoying it. So we're seeing an uptick in that as well.
Bill?
Good morning, Kent. Glad that you could join us this morning. You mentioned the fungus that came up from the south. In previous years, we've had the lantern flies, infestation of stink bugs, and the like. During those times, I know the Department of Agriculture played a very lead role, this is the federal level, in trying to get some help to understand the nature of the infestation. With the recent Doge cuts, and I'm getting political here, the recent Doge cuts, have you seen any less involvement with the Federal Department of Agriculture, or has it remained about the same in these, looking specifically at the infestations?
Looking for on the invasive species side of things that you brought up, and that's a great question. We have not seen too much of a cut there. I fear we're going to see in the next couple of years probably some cuts on what used to be called the gypsy moth, now is the spongy moth, that devastated our oak trees a few decades ago. And we've been doing a program, what's called Slow the Spread. And it's been a nominal cost for the landowner. And we put out traps on the contract with the government, federal government, all over the state. And when we see an infestation getting to a certain point that's going to be damaging, then we go ahead and sign local property owners up. And most people do sign up, and then we do a very non-toxic treatment of the area to knock back the spongy moth. We're probably going to end up seeing an increase in cost to the landowner.
Interesting you say that, because I have a recreational property, 70 acres, but my oak trees are dying. Is that because of the spongy moths?
No, there's other things that are happening, and I'm not a plant pathologist, but I can find out on the next call and give them a little more detail from my folks. But there is a disease going around with the oak trees that are on top. The gypsy moth or spongy moth would actually defoliate the tree, and the tree would die from that. Yeah. What you're seeing is something else.
Okay.
Do we have any ash trees left in the state,
None.
Kent?
Some people treated some ash trees. The ash trees, most of the older ones and mature ones have passed on, but there's seed stock that is in the ground, fortunately, and hopefully that little bugger ate himself out of house and home, and he's not around as much. So we'll start seeing some regeneration of ash trees. But it's a good thing we've gone to metal bats in baseball.
That's right. Yeah, for the ash trees, the older ones, and I did treat a few. Will I have to continue to treat those, or will the bugs eventually go away?
I'm hoping the bugs go away, but I would keep them treated until we know for sure that the bugs are totally gone. Again, that was an invasive species. The ash trees, wonderful tree for the forest, good biodiversity. Right now what they're doing is the dead ones are getting to the point where they rot, and they're falling on all the farmers' fences. Yes. I've got a few I've got to get to on my farm.
Oh, we had one in our front yard that was about 15 years old or so before, well, about 18 years old before it got killed by the emerald ash borer. And that was going to be a magnificently huge tree at one point.
You know, there's such beautiful trees in so many regards. You mentioned baseball, but in the olden times in Europe, they were known as the tree of the kings because they...
Oh, that's why I had it in my front yard.
Yeah, that's right. But they
all hail King Rob.
Let me finish my story.
I don't know. I like John's better.
Okay. But they burned so clean and they burned so hot. Only the kings or the ruling class were allowed to burn them.
So.
I've not heard that one. That's an interesting story. I do know it gets kind of punky fast after they die, so it's got to be burned as soon as it's dried. If you let it sit too long, it doesn't do as well as you just mentioned. Maybe that's why, because it's so special.
Yeah, they're exactly right. No, if they're more than a year old, might as well forget about it, been dead. But you mentioned baseball bats. Supposedly, if once a tree's dead, and it can be only just a couple so weeks, it's no longer good for baseball bat.
Really?
Right.
Yeah.
Bill's just filled with fun
Well,
facts.
I
this
mean,
morning.
and also if a tree is hit by lightning and then you create a baseball bat from it, it's
it's a movie.
It's a movie. It can lead to
Robert Redford.
yes, the natural.
Yeah.
Ken, I got a question. I've heard of gypsy moths. Why the change from gypsy moth to spongy moth? Was that a political thing? Were we offending gypsies? What happened?
I think that was a political thing.
Oh, geez. I think gypsy moth is a cool thing. I mean,
Well, you're not a gypsy now, are you?
or a moth, thankfully. Let me ask you a question. How hard is it to grow hay? I know nothing about farming. I mean, this tree discussion was fascinating for me because I couldn't tell one tree from another. How hard is it to grow hay, and why are we growing less hay?
Well, part of the reason that we're growing less hay is because there's less people farming. And as, you know, our technology has grown up, we've changed the way farming is happening in West Virginia. We've got more and more vegetable farmers. So a lot of our, I visited a farm of a young FFA student, very enterprising, but he's got this pasture of 6 acres covered with vegetable plants now. They used to be all pasture and hay, and he's got it covered with vegetable plants right now. And that's certainly that takes out. I'm glad for the increased production on the vegetable side, but we do lose a little bit on that side. It's not that hard to grow. You have to have a clear field, hopefully more level for safety in your tractor, and it depends upon what type of hay you're growing. If you're going to grow straight alfalfa hay for the horse industry and some of the dairy industry, it takes a little bit more work. But if you're just going to grow for regular beef cattle or your goats and all, it's not that hard to do, but it takes time to harvest. And in this weather, you have to have so many days of dry weather to let it dry. So you have to you take a risk on the weather if you're cutting dry hay. And a lot of farmers are wrapping their hay right now in wet hay, and they don't have to let it dry as long, and it can be greener, and then it ferments and it becomes what they call haylage. So there's a lot of different things that are coming on with new technologies for the farmers, but it's not all that hard to grow the hay. The biggest problem is getting workers, and people are busy. And I mean, I loved when I used to make hay. I don't have time to do it now. I sold my hay equipment, but there was nothing to me. I felt great when I would see that bale drop out of the back of the baler. But
let me ask: are vegetables more profitable to grow than hay? And what sort of vegetables do we grow here in West Virginia?
Well, we grow all sorts of vegetables, and yes, vegetables are generally more profitable. They're also a lot more work because you have to do the harvesting and the planting and everything else, and then the washing and getting prepped for the market, and then the marketing. Whereas most farmers with hay, they can cut the hay, let it sit there until they find a buyer, or whether they feed it themselves. But certainly there's more profit in the vegetables, but there's also a lot. It goes with a little bit more work.
From my standpoint, vegetables taste better than hay. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I was going to say, Kent, you said you enjoyed the making the hay process. You did not live in the pitchfork and the haystack era, and that was nothing fun about those. Yeah, and using the pitchfork, throwing the hay up, and you'd just be covered with that.
Are you allergic?
Stuff.
Are you allergic?
No, it just itches. So the whole body just itches. It's not a clean job.
And there's a difference between hay and straw too.
Yeah, I'm talking about hay.
Yeah. Kent, what's the difference between hay and straw?
Well, straw is usually the byproduct of, say, wheat or barley, where they harvest the wheat seed and the barley, and then that stem that's left becomes straw, whereas hay is fed totally. The livestock won't eat the straw because that's just so stiff, and they use it for bedding and other things, and and ground cover in your garden for mulch to help your garden grow. But the hay, if you cut it at the right time, the animal's eating the entire piece of the plant.
Kent, we noticed on Metro News, a young farmer in Fayette County was a car accident and then electrocuted as he was trying to climb back up to the road. Did you know the gentleman by chance, Trey Yates?
Yes, I knew Trey. He was a very enterprising young man. He started a dairy. If you've ever driven to through Wisconsin, they've got a big market on cheese curds, and Trey was bringing cheese curds to the state of West Virginia. He was starting a dairy. He was doing a lot of the farm-to-school programs. He was doing some of the selling to the food banks and the pantries as well. And he was one of the farmers that was hurt with some of those cuts from the USDA and that we all heard a lot about. So very tragic loss. He was working with other farmers like Johnny's Popcorns and sharing distribution. So he was being very innovative and bringing new products to the state. A very tragic loss, and everybody in the ag community is very saddened by it.
27 years of age, I understand.
That's
Yes.
a tragedy.
Yeah. Yeah, very tragic.
Kent, my neighbor this weekend gave me some tree tape to put around the trees, and within 2 hours, there were spotted lanternfly nymphs crawling up the tree and getting stuck in the tape. The next day, it was insane how many of them were on the tape. And I'm just thinking about last year, how many I saw around the base of light poles and such. And I can only imagine that the problem will be worse this year. What do you know about the invasive species, the spotted lanternfly, this year?
It's spreading. That's the one thing I can say. It is spreading, and you will see pockets of it with blossoms like you're seeing in your yard, and then later on you may not see near as many. I had reports from like the airport. A friend of mine, said they were all over the airport in Pittsburgh. We can't believe this. And then I went up there the next week and I couldn't see a one. So it's going to come and go, but the insect is spreading. The biggest host, if anybody's out there listening, if you have the tree of heaven on your property, please remove it. The tree of heaven is a host, and they love to go there for their congregation and their breeding and everything else. And then they just become all over the place. They don't harm most vegetation. They're just a nuisance because they're all over the place.
But you mentioned tree of heaven. You have to kill the tree first before you cut it down. Because if you cut it down, you're going to have a dozen different roots coming up all around the place. So you need to kill it first.
That's usually the best way to do it. Or you cut it down and treat the stump.
Yeah.
How do you kill it?
Bill sneaks up from behind and
there's some chemicals you can put, and you make a small hatchet mark on it, and you spray the spray inside that hatchet mark,
right.
And it's very effective. I guess I've killed 15 to 20 in the last few months on my property.
I wouldn't even know what they looked like. This is amazing.
And and Kent's exactly right. Once they infest taste, they're all over the place, and it's. Sorry, I had a phone call that came in, Rob. But I got.
You need to take a call, Admiral.
We'll wait. Go right ahead.
No.
Looked important.
No way. But if the tree of heaven's not there, then they'll go to maples, they'll go to walnuts, they'll go to other trees as well. So.
Bill, that was actually, I got the text. That was from the Tree of Heaven prosecuting attorney. They need to talk to you.
Yeah, you're being looked at.
Those trees have no redeeming qualities whatsoever. They're not good for fire burn. They're not good for anything.
That's going to work against you in the civil suit. Yeah, Kent Leonhardt is our guest here as the Secretary of Agriculture in the state of West Virginia. Kent, I got about 3 minutes left. What of importance do you want to make sure our audience knows?
Well, I want to make sure the audience knows to go out and buy and look for that West Virginia grown label. That labeling, that branding we started at the Department of Agriculture is growing. More and more producers are there. We've tripled farmers markets over the years since I've been in office, and I'm going to encourage everybody to go out and visit the farmers markets. Know your farmer, know your food. It's all part of the healthy living and healthy eating. We can really turn some of the problems we have in this state around if we start supporting the West Virginia farmer. Look for that West Virginia grown meat like we talked about earlier, the fruits and vegetables, get to know those farmers out there, encourage them. They enjoy what they do, but they also enjoy when they go to the market interacting with the public and their customers.
And Kent, in regards to the rest of this year, I'm not sure if we're on schedule for a rainy summer or not. I know hurricane season officially is underway here as well, since we are now in the month of June. I think that goes through October. Do you have any advanced weather data that tells us what kind of a summer we're going to have?
Oh, I wish I did. I wish I could forecast the weather. Nice to be a weatherman. I guess you can be wrong 50% of the time and still get paid.
Yes, sir.
I would, but I just hope all this rain didn't come too early and we don't get any, because we could, as fast as we were coming out of the drought, we could go back into it, and we just can't have. Well, we'll get through it, but we really don't want to have to put our farmers through that again, because it was awfully hard last year. And
if anybody has any questions in regards to the state and agriculture, Kent, how do they get in touch with your office?
They can contact us through our website, which is agriculture.westvirginia.gov, and they can ask questions on there. There's a wealth of knowledge on there. There's a directory of the West Virginia grown product farmers out there and the farmers markets. All sorts of good resources there, and phone numbers to reach us if they need us.
Kent, thanks so much for your time this morning. As always, greatly appreciated.
Thank you, gentlemen, for having me on. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, Ken.
I'm going to send you out with a Marine Corps theme, Ken. Thank you.